Talented people always leave a history of results. If they hated their last 5 bosses, you can be sure they're going to hate you in a year.
Yeah.
If they excelled at their last 3 jobs, you can be sure they'll excel with you.
What up, vlog? This is Travis Believes, and I am here with a very special guest, David Osborn. And this is probably the #1 real estate mogul to me, simply because he's a compassionate, genuine individual. He's not just in it for the money. He's genuinely wanting to help people. He lives by the same thing that he espouses, and he has a beautiful family. So we're going to dive into this interview. And can't wait to catch you guys on the other side. So, David Osborn, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's great to see you, Travis. I'm so glad you stopped by.
Yeah, good, man. So I wanted to tell you a story because, I met you a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. And I just always felt like you've been a very genuine individual. And it's very hard to meet people that are genuine. There's a lot of people that I feel like that are scammers, a lot of people that are not genuine. And I think we need to highlight the people that are really in it for the passion and really making a difference. So, tell us about David Osborn. Who is David Osborn?
Sure, great question. Well, I remember meeting you, and it was so fun because I did a speech at a school.
Yeah.
And I didn't think I did well that night. I felt bad. Sometimes you feel like you kill it on stage, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
And you made a video, and that video was the best video I've ever had done. So thank you for that. You made me look really good when I was feeling kind of sweaty under the collar. So David Osborn, I don't think you could recreate my life. It would be hard to, because my dad was a military guy. He was a soldier. We got moved all the time. Germany, England, didn't get back to America until I was 14. I left America at 18 months, got back when I was 14. Moved 10 times in 14 years.
Wow.
So you can imagine, right? Yeah, I went to 8 schools in my high school years. So from age 13 to 18, I went to 8 different educational establishments. So just like a Rolling Stone, a pinball and a pinball machine is kind of my background, and multicultural. So when I came, I don't have that attachment some people have to like deep roots in a space, right? So that was my background. And if you have a military father, all military brats know one another, so we can wave one another out. My dad was very strict, very aggressive. He was a Green Beret, as a matter of fact, so Special Forces Army. My mom was a housewife. She's a Brit. Very ordered house. We grew up with everything tidy, everything put away, a lot of discipline, a lot of sort of corporal punishment when you misbehave, things they don't do anymore. But back then, I think it was pretty common.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in such fear of my dad being so strict, I wasn't afraid at school. So I kind of acted up a little bit. I wasn't an athlete, so I didn't have sports to go to. I was a small kid. And so I acted up, and I got thrown out of 3 high schools. Just didn't have any fear of teachers. I would speak back if I saw hypocrisy. Funnily enough, if I liked a teacher, I'd be their best friend.
Wow.
And I'd support them in the class. But if I disliked them, I'd push back. Yeah.
Yeah, kicked out of 3 schools?
3 schools, yeah. Kind of like a rebel without a clue. That's what I was. And mostly, by the way, they were private schools. Mm-hmm. So it was like I got uninvited back. Only, let me see, only 2 of them asked me to leave during the course of the year. No, 1 of them. And the other 2 just said, you can't come back next year. So they let me finish the year, and then they uninvited me.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened after that?
So even in all of that, Travis, I was a good worker. Like I had jobs. I made money. I started a lawn mowing company at age 17. I made $20,000 while I was living at home. So
really? Wait, how long ago was this?
This was 1985. So 20 grand cash. So it would be the same probably as 60 grand a day or something.
Wow.
It was a good chunk of
So you had the entrepreneur spirit just early on.
Early on, I wanted financial freedom. And it's funny, there's 3 kids in the family. I'm the only one that got really bitten hard by the entrepreneurial spirit. My brother's an engineer. My older sister's a lawyer. And I'm just like, I just wanted freedom. And the only way I could see to freedom was to own businesses. But like anyone, I was inept. I was completely incapable. Started my lawn mowing company. I hustled. I did really good. I got up to 3 trucks. And then one of the guys stole one of the trucks. It's just like a whole story of the learning things you go through. So when I'm graduating high school, I said to my dad, I want to run my lawn mowing company. He said, you got 3 choices: Marines, college, or just out of the house, you're done.
Oh, wow.
So
that was a hard pill to swallow.
That was hardcore. So I interviewed with the Marines. I really didn't like the guy, the recruiter. Mm-hmm. So then I went to college, and just to show my dad who's boss, I failed every class my first semester. I never went to school. Yeah, it was crazy.
Wow. Okay, so you went to school, and then you failed all the classes.
Failed all the classes.
How did you find yourself? How did you find what you wanted to do? So, what was that process like?
Well, a lot of stuff going on, too. So I had a baby out of wedlock at 19. Mm-hmm. I was smoking a bunch of weed back then and doing drugs like kids do.
Were you living in Texas?
I was living here in Texas. Okay. So we retired when I was 14. Came to America. I didn't even know what marijuana was. First private school I go to, what are the private kids doing? They're all smoking weed. So they're like, you got to try this. I'm like, no, I'm really freaked out by it. And then I fell into it. I was always kind of internally driven, so I would always weigh stuff out and look at stuff on a continuous basis, even when I made a lot of mistakes. So I remember when I turned 21, I now had a baby. Although there's a long story behind that I don't want to get into, but we have a great relationship today. She's 32. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, my life is getting out of hand. Like I just had this feeling like my life was getting out of hand. So when I turned 21, I quit all drugs, I quit all alcohol, and I just started trying to get my life together. And I sort of started sorting my way through it. I managed to fight my way through college. I kept working on the side and had a job. I was kind of living on my own by now. And I kind of just started internally and then worked my way out.
So, but what was the catalyst? What made you? Was it the kid that made you say, you know what, I need to really change?
Oh, Travis, that's such a good question. The kid was a huge part of it. I remember when she was born, I didn't even know she was born. So this girl got pregnant. She's a couple years older than me. Mm-hmm. She moved away, and then she called me one day and said, "Hey, you got a baby." And I asked for a blood test. She didn't give it to me. There's a whole story behind it, but I remember driving like a maniac that day because I just felt my life was out of hand. I could have been killed easily that day. And then I just pulled over and I ran into the woods for 30 minutes. I didn't know where. I just ran straight deep into the woods till I couldn't run anymore. So that was part of it. You have to go through these like initiations in life, painful initiations. Yeah. And then another piece is I was doing drugs back then, and I kind of one time while I was doing some mushrooms, I felt like I met God, honestly. So, and he kind of just snapped me back in. I never touched a drug after that.
So, I got you. So that was kind of like basically the catalyst.
That was the catalyst.
To like, yo, something is going on.
Something's going on.
I need to start seeing different things. Mm-hmm. And that, I guess, trip kind of
snapped me back.
Yeah.
I mean, life was out of hand. I felt very lost. And it was just like a weird trip where I guess I just felt God say to me, there's a purpose for your life. Like that was it. Like there's more to it, but that's the simple version. I snapped back, sobered up, and that was it. I'm like, I'm not doing any more hard drugs.
Yeah. So you sobered up, and you get everything back on track. Yeah. You're starting to realize, I need to put my life in a better direction.
Correct.
How did you get into real estate?
So then I go finish college. I get out with a 2.2 GPA. I go to work for a computer company. 1 year, I'm their top salesman. Walking into a skyscraper and walking past the front desk person and trying to sell computers to the company.
This in Austin?
In Austin.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's when you walk up to the front lady, right past the no solicitation sign, and you say, "Hey, Travis, that's a great hat. Who's in charge of buying computers in your company?" So you just learn to charm people. You're trying to charm them instantly, right? Yeah. Well, my boss at that company, my life's been so crazy, but my boss at that company was a female, and she kind of put the moves on me. So I did that for a year at that company. It was just a bad experience. I was eager beaver. I wanted to make stuff happen. My 15-year-old Boulder boss wants more than just normal from me, Back then, they didn't have a name for it. They didn't have the Me Too or the He Too or whatever that stuff is. It was just life. So,
yeah.
So it got so awkward that I quit that job, went hitchhiking around the world for 2 years.
Wow.
Sold everything I owned, hitchhiked around the world for 2 years. When I came back, I was deeply in debt. I mean, to me, $1,500. My net worth was negative $1,500. But my mom and dad were still middle of the middle class. Yeah. So, I mean, one advantage I know, we were talking about this earlier, is I always knew I had a home to come back to. I always knew I would eat. I had a mom and dad that, as strict as my dad was and as organized as my mom was, they both loved me and they always would give me a place to stay, unless I was completely screwing up in a massive way. So I came home, and my mom was a realtor. And my dad was a soldier, and he was still like, he wanted me to sign up so bad. He's like, you could be a general. Like, that's all he lived for, was being a soldier. And I said, Mom, Dad's trying to get me killed. You need to give me a job in real estate.
So your mom was in real estate. Okay.
She was an agent. And actually, the truth is, I told her I'd never work for her. But she wanted me to work for her. And I said, Mom, I'm going to go look for a real job. And she said, well, why don't you come work for me to pay off your credit card debt while you look for a real job? And I got my license, and I really fast, like 11 days. I don't know if you can still do it that fast. I did it a weekend, all week, and then that weekend. And then I sold a buddy a house, and I drove him around, and we had a good time, and I made $5,000. And I remember thinking, this isn't such a bad job. I like this job. So I went on for 3 years, built a team in Austin, working with my mom, and we became the number one team in Keller Williams at the time. Now, just to be clear, the company was really small back then, and the production we did to be number one today wouldn't even make the top 100. The world, it's moved so fast.
Yeah.
At the same time, Keller Williams was trying to expand, and they were now we're the number one real estate company in the world. Back then, there was 800 people in the company. Today, there's 180,000.
Wow.
So it's a big company.
Much larger operation.
Much larger.
Yeah.
So I kind of raised my hand, and I was like, hey, what's next for me? What's my next opportunity? And so with the backing of my mom, so Mom and I were a team now. So my dad's retired. He's good for yelling at people and disciplining people. My mom is an English woman who's never had a college degree, but she's super high integrity, hard work ethic, has a lot of really good values. So we start the North Texas, New Mexico region, which is one of the Keller Williams regions. And the region is, here's how they sell your region, Travis. They say, here, you can buy this territory. You go sell franchises. If you fail, we take it back for nothing. You're out. And if you succeed, you get a half of the royalties generated in that.
Wow. So it's called a master franchise.
So that's what you're a part of now?
That's what I'm part of now. So that was my beginning. So I went up there to Dallas, and I started selling franchises. I wasn't any good at selling them. So what I do to sell them is I'd say, Travis, you need to buy this franchise. What I could do is get people excited, but I don't think I had the credibility. I was like 29, 30 years old. I couldn't get people across the line. So what I kept doing is like buying the franchise. So I'd get people to join it, and I'd give them maybe a little piece of equity in it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't actually close the sale, so I bought it myself.
Oh, okay.
And I did this over and over again, because if you don't sell a certain amount of franchises, they take it back from you.
And you wasn't trying to have that.
I didn't want to lose it. I was never going to lose.
Yeah.
Right. So, and my mom and dad didn't have much money either, but they backed me financially at that point, which I'll always be grateful for them. So we built this together, and then my mom's integrity, and she's showing up, and she's like the wisdom and experience that I don't have, and then I'm the engine. I'm like the Energizer bunny. I'm just running around having a million appointments. And one thing led to another. Over a few years, I got better at selling them. I got better at operating them. Long story short, I became the number one franchise owner in Keller Williams, which was never my plan.
Wow.
Only because I wasn't any good at selling franchises.
That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then over the time, I got better at operating them. And one of the things Keller is, Gary Keller, who's a billionaire, the closest billionaire I've ever had. He's my mentor and a teacher of mine. He's tough. I wouldn't call him necessarily, he's a friend, but he's not friendly. Does that make sense? He's tough.
Yeah.
But he basically was coaching me, and he's really big on learning. So he was teaching us all the time. Both his parents are professors. So I'm in all these classes, more than I ever wanted to do, Travis. It's almost like being in a church. They're like, we're going to teach you, and you're going to learn this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to go to class. I want to go build my businesses. But one of the things he taught is hire the best people possible. And I learned this so deeply in my bones. So when I had these 5 franchises, I learned they would only be as good as the manager that I hired to run that franchise.
Yeah.
And so I got really good at hiring. Now imagine you're 30 years old and you're learning this stuff, which is like MBA level stuff, in a practical way in the field. And so I got really good at hiring. My businesses blew up. I became the number one franchisor, found some great partners. I expanded to California, to Florida, Virginia, and Canada with little equity investments in the master franchises. And today that group of offices sells $12 billion worth of real estate a year.
Wow. So you're in charge of that.
I merged with a young up-and-comer. He's my partner. His name's Smokey. He's the CEO. I'm the chairman. So he's an amazingly talented guy, and he runs that business. We're partners in it. We're equal partners. So when you say I'm the guy, really when you own a real estate company, we have 4,500 agents. we're really their servant. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so we have 4,500 agents that show up every day. We provide for them as best we can what they need, and that keeps them in business with us.
Because they're the blood.
They're the players. They make stuff happen.
Yeah.
I look at it like a little bit like a football team. So they're the players. You can't win without the right players.
So I heard you say something. You said you got really good at hiring managers.
Yes.
What are the top qualities? Like, what were you looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first off, I could almost teach a 5-hour course on this, but let's go back to the basics. Number one for me is integrity, like meaning you're going to tell me what's going on. Yeah. I'm not looking for like Boy Scout saint-like integrity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like there's a difference. I'm not looking for the Pope, but I'm looking for a person that's honest, has truth, will tell me the truth, will try their best, is working hard, and has that. So that's number one. Number two is an engine. They have to be self-driven. I can't call you every day and say, hey, did you get up today? Did you go to work? Like they have to be self-driven. You could call that talented. So integrity, talented, and then, I think actually talent is probably the third one. And the way you find them, Travis, is there's always a history. Talented people generally leave a history. I can hear my kids up there playing. I hope it's not bugging us, but...
it's okay. Yeah.
Talented people always leave a history of results. Not when they're really young, but if you ask someone in the interview process, tell me about your life story. Put your modesty in your back pocket and just tell me the highs and lows, really the big things. Where have you won big and where have you lost big? Go. And then they'll tell you. And if they hated their last 5 bosses, you can be sure they're going to hate you in a year.
Yeah.
If they excelled at their last 3 jobs, you can be sure they'll excel with you, almost always.
Yeah.
So you want to look for people that have left a history of success.
So would you say that those are also the same qualities needed to just be a top real estate agent, period?
Yeah, top agents need a little bit something else. They need a relentless willingness to deal with rejection. Salespeople deal with so much rejection. So an agent needs to have high energy, pretty good social skills, and they need to be like bulletproof. Does that make sense? So yes, of course, integrity, yes, talent, yes, self-driven, all of that is very important. But I look for slightly, like for my managers, I want leadership skills as well. It's different to be an individual performer versus a leader. So think of the leaders as coaches. So you look at a great football team, like Nick Saban knows what he's doing to bring all these talented people and make them play together. But you couldn't necessarily take the best running back on Alabama and make him the coach. Does that make sense? So there's a little variation. You need both. And then my job is as the owner is like putting all the pieces in place now.
When did you first become a millionaire, and how did it feel?
That's another great question because it didn't feel like it should. It just rolled by. I didn't even notice it till 3 years later when I look back on it. But I think I was probably in my early 30s, because I owned all these franchises. And this is one of my biggest lessons is if you want financial freedom, you have to have assets that accelerate in value while you're sleeping. So I didn't really plan on that. I'm opening these franchises because I'm not very good at selling them. So I'm owning them by default, not by intention. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Intention because I wasn't willing to fail. So now I own 5 offices and they're all going up in value. So it happened pretty quick for me and I didn't expect it because I'm working on each one and I'm working 80 hours a week as hard as I possibly can. I probably did that for about 15 years. Even had almost a mini nervous breakdown and identity crisis about 4 or 5 years in, but that's a separate story. But these businesses grow. So they all came up at the same time, and like suddenly in a few years, I was a millionaire.
So when
I'd been working at that point for probably 7 or 8 years into it.
So when you look back and then it hit you, what was that feeling like?
I was proud of myself, but, there's a saying, it's just so true. Like, wherever you get to, it suddenly just looks normal.
Yeah.
And then you get further. There's a real struggle with enough. Like, what is enough? So I felt accomplished, but by then I was already comparing myself to, Bill Gates or Gary Keller or... You're always looking ahead, not behind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's a flaw. Like Dan Sullivan's a coach, and he teaches this thing called the gap. And the gap is when you set a goal here, but you hit here, and instead of celebrating where you came from, you look at this failure, the gap that you didn't hit, and then you beat yourself up about the gap.
That's true.
Yeah.
We do that.
We do that.
We do that a lot.
So it felt great, and the journey's been one of feeling more and more safe and comfortable. And I think part of the thing for me was like safety from all the chaotic childhood I had is like, how can I create my safety? But man, I was in battle after battle. It just felt like early on, and I still am in battles, but now I'm really good at the battles, so they don't feel like such a big deal.
Which brings me to my next question. What type of values did you have to take on? Like, what were the changes you had to take on in order to reach that level? Like, you were something at first, where it was impossible for you to reach that level because of your mindset.
Right.
How did you change? Who did you become in order to reach that next level?
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying, I don't know where it comes from, but it's like, iron sharpens iron, like man sharpens man. And there's another thing, you got to burn out the impurities. And I had to change so much, just like as when I had that breakdown because I had the baby and I was doing drugs and I felt like my life was lost. I had to change myself at that moment and become something more. Business is just like this. It's like I feel like a piece of metal on an anvil, and the blacksmith is just hammering me on a continuous basis.
Yeah. And
I had to cut off all the irrelevant stuff, the wasteful stuff, the over analysis. I used to overanalyze things, so I call it paralysis by analysis. Sometimes I was like a ready aim, but I couldn't fire. And I had to get rid of all of that. In business, it's actually better to fire 10 times and miss 9
than never fire.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I learned to just take action, and make a bunch of mistakes and not beat myself up over those mistakes. Just understand I'm going to fly really fast and I'm going to screw up stuff a lot. You have to learn to be embarrassed a lot. You have to be willing to look like an idiot a lot because you fail a lot, right? You get robbed by people. I mean, there are deceitful people out there. Things go badly. There are honest people that disagree with what you did and think you did something wrong, and you have conflicts. I learned to disclose stuff more and be more transparent. Early on, I thought, well, if I hide this half, then I can get them going over here. Like I was more manipulative. And I learned that you just have to lay it all out. If I'm not happy with your performance as a manager, I'm just going to tell you. You know, early on, I was dealing with people older than me, so I'd be like, they're not doing that good, but I don't want to hurt their feelings. And now I'm just like, hey, this is not working. Now I try to compliment too, so it's like plus minus plus. I learned to fire fast and hire slow.
Fire fast, hire slow.
I learned that you're only as good as your people. I learned that you have a covenant relationship with your people, so if they're good, you owe it to them to be thinking about their future as well as them as they're looking after your future. I learned to only focus on the top 20%, the most important items, and drop all the rest. Because early on, I'd like worry about all this stuff, man. And this is where I had that sort of personality breakdown in when I was 31, and I got shingles from stress. I was worried about everything. Like everything to me was almost equal. So whether my manager was good or whether the computer was working properly or the cubicles were set up, it all stressed me out. And I remember at age 31, I was working harder than I could. I quit drinking that year. I was trying to read the Bible cover to cover. And I had like almost an internal breakdown. I was trying to be too good, too perfect. And I did a bunch of work and went to a bunch of seminars. And I just spoke to the richest guy I know, and I'm like, what's your secret for success? And he says, every day I get up in the morning, I write down the 7 most important things I have to do, and I do the top 3. That's it. I let everything else fall through the cracks. Just do your A priorities, blow off your B's and your C's. So that was the beginning of a long journey where today, like, I don't pay my own bills, I don't clean my own house, I don't fill up my own car, except I got a Tesla now. I don't, like, everything, I took everything off of my plate that was minutia. So I would write all my to-do list down, and then I'd start writing other people's names by it. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm giving you a lot.
No, this is all gold.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you kind of was brushing up on what the successful people do.
Right.
The richest guy in Rome, he said he has a 7, does a 3, and that's considered a win. What habits do you see that successful people have in common in order to win the day?
Yeah, I think the number one thing I've learned is to be massively purposeful for my life. So I am probably one of the most focused, unfocused people you'll ever meet. Like I had to teach myself to be massively focused, from a massive procrastinator to an incredibly focused person. And you know, when you're a pot smoker, you might know some. They're generally not the most focused people in the world. So when I was in high school, I was a pot smoker. And today I'm like super focused because what I do is I write down what I want to accomplish and I just tune into that on a regular basis. And now I have a team that sees it. So everywhere I go, I have my goals, which I have right here. And I don't know if we can show this or not, but
yeah, sure.
This is my journal. I got 60 journals up there because I've been journaling since I was a kid. And then if you go to my goals tab, that's my goals for 2021.
Oh, wow.
So that's my flight plan for 2021.
So you have a whole flight plan and everything.
This is what I would call my flight plan. And this is family, spiritual, physical, intellectual, lifestyle, environment, and personal. And then this is all my businesses. Wow. So each one of these, and I read this twice a week. So it's constantly in my brain. And the thing I've learned is if you're... Yeah, well, it's like the reticular activator. Yeah. What you see, you will achieve. What you lean into will happen for you. And if what you're leaning into is playing the latest video game for 8 hours a day, you'll be the greatest video game player ever, right? Yeah. Like one of my nephews, all he wants to do is play video games, and he wants to get paid to do it. And God bless him, I hope that works. But ultimately, what you lean into becomes your destiny. Yeah. And what I've learned as a person who wasn't focused is if I write down these 80 things, and I started off with 10. So if you would just write down 10 or even 3 things a quarter that were the most important things to take your business to the next level, and you read that every day and you made sure you got those 3 things done, you'll start succeeding. And so then I've expanded that over the years. And the way you do it, it's not like I wasn't born with an innate level of discipline. Like I notice athletes sometimes bring a certain amount of discipline. What I've done is made myself disciplined by reviewing my goals on a continuous basis and almost force feeding it into my brain. So when I'm in a state of inspiration and I'm writing down what I want to have happen in the new year, all my goals and the things I'm excited about, I capture that. This is why people fail at New Year's resolutions, but I don't. Like I do what I say I'm going to do because I write all that stuff down and then I just read it, and it reminds me. And when I'm feeling down or whatever, I'm like, oh, I really don't want to work out today, but I committed to 240 workouts. Or I notice, oh my gosh, I'm behind on my date nights. I want to have a 10 out of 10 relationship with my wife. I need to set up a date night. Does that make sense? So absolutely. It's just leaning into what you intend to do so that life doesn't just carry you away with mediocrity. Because if you're not careful, you could binge watch on Netflix, eat a bunch of junk food, and never talk to your kids or your wife, and suddenly you're overweight, you haven't done anything at work, and your kids don't know who you are, and your wife leaves you, because it's just all a process. Like to me, that's my flight plan for life, and that's what I focus on. And now I've got a team, and I let them see all that also. Gotcha. So one of my goals is 12 overnight date nights at a hotel with my wife because I want to get away from the kids. And really for her because it makes her happier to be away from the kids. And so my team now just book them. We can always cancel them, but I'll see, Wednesday this week I'm going to the Commodore Perry Hotel, and we've got a date night. So I remind my wife, and we go out that night, have dinner together, and spend the night in a hotel. It's really nice.
That's
once
amazing.
A month. Yeah.
Very intentional.
Very intentional, man. And that's what you asked me, what do wealthy people do? They're purposeful. They're super purposeful, which is why there's that saying, if you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. Does that make sense? Yeah. I get more done in a year now while working less hours than I did in 10 years. Wow. If you took my whole 20s or my whole 30s, I probably do more deals, make more money, get more accomplished in 1 year, have more vacations, work out more. Everything is dialed in now at a level that it probably would in 10 years I wasn't as focused, and I do it in less time because I've learned to only do the important stuff. Now it creates a certain amount of chaos in your life, which is why you'll see the overachieving salesperson that makes $1 million a year that gets attacked by the IRS because they didn't pay their taxes, and you don't necessarily want to be that. But the first thing is to learn how to make your engine run on the things that are most important. And even if you can only work 30 hours a week, if you work 30 hours a week on the most important things, you'll win. Now, you're going to have to learn skills along the way, which is why if you give, one of my heroes is Vince Young because he won us a national championship in Texas, and he blew all his money. Breaks my heart. Billy Joel's another one, the singer. He lost his money like multiple times because it doesn't matter who you are. If you're given a lump sum but you haven't developed the package of skills you need to manage that, you're not going to keep it. Yeah. Because all of these things have to build on one another. So that's why in 30 hours now I can get more done than I could when I was working 65, 70, 80 hours a week. I can do more in 1 year than I could in 10.
So if you were talking to your younger self, knowing this now. Yeah. Let's say 20-year-old self. What would you tell them?
Man, I'd say first off, create a vision for your life. Create a vision for your life that you're excited about. Okay, so that vision, let's go out 5 years or 10 years. What do you see yourself doing? What would you love to do? And find a career or a craft that you could master. So you go out and you say, I don't know, let's say, give me a career path.
Athlete.
Okay, an athlete. Well, I wasn't one. I was a dorky little kid, but we'll try with that one. So you want to be the best golfer in the world, because I like golf. We'll choose that. So here's what you got to do. You got to...
I love golfing, by the way.
Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, let's go play.
We can. Yeah.
Okay. For sure. So you got to hit 1,000 balls a day, 5 days a week. So let's put down that we're going to hit 1,000 balls 20 days a month, because you don't want to do it 100% of the time. You want to give yourself a little break every now and then. You want to find a teacher, probably for athletic strength. So find a personal trainer. By the way, these things aren't expensive. You can go hit balls very cheaply at
Top Golf.
Yeah, Top Golf, exactly. Even that's more expensive than like a Muni course.
Yeah.
You want to go find a physical teacher. You want to read a couple books. So I'd set a goal of reading one book a quarter, or listening to a book a quarter on golf. I would go find a golf coach, the best one you can afford. I would model myself after certain golfers. I would download the video, and I'd say, video my swing once a week or twice a week or whatever. All of these things can be done for free, but the thing is to write it all down.
Write it down.
Read that twice a week, and then execute on that plan.
Yeah.
Let all the other stuff in your life fall apart, but execute on that plan. So for salespeople, it's always prospecting. Real estate's pretty easy if you can find the clients.
Yeah.
You just treat people nicely, take care of them, and help them out, right?
Right.
But finding the clients is the hard thing. The best producers always know how to prospect. And when you build a bigger and bigger circle, you can either prospect because you're a warm, charismatic personality, which is one way, which is what the majority of them do. Or you can prospect like a machine, send out the bell cards, learn the scripts and dialogues, and be like more robotic, which is actually what the ones that make the most money end up doing. But what you can't do is just get into the business, design the most beautiful presentation, but never meet anybody, which I see a lot of people do too. Right. Yeah. Don't get lost in the little detail. Think what's the most important thing, and so you got to figure out whatever your craft is, whatever direction you want to go in. What are the fundamental things that define the winners in this space? What are my role models? What did they do every day? And then just duplicate that and repeat. So be purposeful, have a vision, write down your goals, and execute on the day about your goals. I have another little secret I'll show you, which is really cool that I love. And I only learned this last year, and that's from Atomic Habits. So now I take the most important activities of the month, the ones that are measurable from my goals, and don't worry about that, and I put them here. So here's the things that has to happen, and then I X them every time I do them. So if you got on here, these are the most important things. Work out, ride my Peloton, do my yoga, do my meditation, intermittent fast, no alcohol, no sugar, eat vegetarian. This is not every day. I've got a certain number of times. I want to work out 240 times. I want to hit my Peloton 100 times. I want to do yoga 50 times. I want to meditate 200 times or pray. I want to intermittent fast 200 times. I want to have no alcohol 150 times. So these are all things that I track. Guitar with my daughter. Wrestle with Luke was last year, but I just changed it to golf with Luke because he doesn't like wrestling anymore. Plug in my phone by 7 p.m. So I'm with my family in the evening. Listen to a podcast like you're putting out right here. Or learn something. Review my goals, which you'll see here, and then chip 100 times or putt 100 times. Not every day though. I want to be clear. So I've got. If you go back to my sheet, I have a certain number that I want to hit these things. Like for instance, this year I want to do 200 days with no alcohol, 200 days intermittent fast, 150 days no sugar, 75 days vegetarian.
Somebody may read that though,
right,
and say that seemed kind of random. How did you come up with 75 days?
Yeah,
is this like, did you speak with some sort of nutrition, or how did you set those goals?
Great question. So I'm always learning and leaning my life into higher and higher levels of excellence. Okay, so until my dad got cancer, I didn't care about my health. So my dad got cancer 12 years ago and died. He got it actually 14 years ago, and he died 12 years ago, right before Bella was born. I tried to teach him while he was sick new nutritional skills. That's when I went deep into nutrition. And that began my journey on nutrition, right? So now I follow what I wanted my dad to follow. My dad was a meat and potato guy, drank every night. He was just old school. Like he said, David, I'm just going to do what the doctor says to do. That's all he was interested in. He didn't want to hear anything from me. And that was fine. But now I've learned basically being vegetarian is better for you.
It is.
Even if you just have a little bit of meat, it's okay. But there's a book called The Blue Zones. There's a book by Mark Hyman. There's a lot of good books out there that discuss it.
One of the healthiest people in the world, Blue Zones.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So now I love meat. So the reason what you see, it's not an arbitrary number. I tried for 50 days last year. I've upped it to 75. So I try to move the needle.
Gotcha.
So a few years ago, I used to drink every night. My wife and I would have a bottle of wine. We'd drink it in 2 nights every night. So we were drinking every night. We'd drink a half bottle one night, half bottle the next night. It was just the way we did it. And then I read all this stuff about alcohol. And as much as they say wine is good for you, really, there's no good evidence that alcohol is good for you. It's just a release. And I'm not opposed to it either, but I'm dialing alcohol back. And so now, last year I did 175 days without alcohol. This year I'm trying to do 200 days without alcohol. I'm just pushing the needle forward because ultimately, unless you drink a tiny amount, like alcohol is really not good for you. Now, one of my motivations for that, Travis, is my son is 4 and I'm 53. So you run the numbers on that, you can see that if I want to see him get married, I got to be pretty healthy at 80, probably, maybe 85. So I'm playing the long game with my health. And the things that motivated me originally was my dad dying of cancer, and then the second thing is having a young son. My son's a miracle baby. We didn't think we could have any more kids, and he just came. Yeah. So it's cool. I'm really happy we have him. And, of course, both my daughters are miracle babies, too. All kids are miracles. But he was unexpected, I guess. We tried for Bella. And then Kevin was a beautiful, beautiful mistake.
How many kids? 4?
I got 3. I got 3. A 32-year-old and a 4-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the thing. And then if you look at the arbitrary numbers, you'll just see that I'm trying to move the needle in a certain direction.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of not trying to be like impossibly strong. Like I'm going to quit alcohol and never drink again. I like to leave oil in the machine. I like to let my goals be something that I'm leaning into, not that are dictators over me. Does that make sense?
Why?
Because what I found early in my career is I would beat myself up way too much. And I would like not do what I said, that gap thing, and I'd be like, oh, you're such a loser. Why couldn't you have made that extra call? Why couldn't you close that extra deal? I don't have, and what I realized, Travis, is I talk to myself in a way that if anyone talked to my kid that way, I'd punch him in the face. You know what I mean? I might lose, but I'd still punch him in the face. So I have said, well, it's not, why would it be okay for me not to talk to my kid that way, but I'm willing to talk to myself that way.
Right.
So then I started switching my whole language internally, and all of these are journeys, right? And now I just love on myself. In fact, my word for this year is compassion. I try to be compassionate with myself, compassionate with others. I'm trying to take that edge off. Now, the way my dad raised me was very edgy, but I'm trying to take that off and just be loving and kind and still committed, but come from loving kindness instead of from aggression and self-beating up. So the reason I leave oil in my goals, the other thing that I've learned is the more you align your word with what you say, the more powerful you become.
That's what you said in that one speech.
Yeah. So if you say this and you do this, you're completely out of alignment.
Yeah.
So therefore, you're an inauthentic person. And it doesn't matter that the world knows it. They probably do. But what matters is your soul knows it.
Right.
And your soul won't listen to you because it knows you say this and do this.
Wow.
But if you can align that up and sort of move that towards one another and get some overlap, no one's perfect. Everyone falls short. But the more you overline that, the more you believe you. And so because I believe me, I can say I'm going to feed 1 million kids next year and they'll get fed. I can say I'm going to build a business and make $10 million and it'll happen. Because I believe me. I've aligned myself with my word. Does that make sense? And there's a massive
power. Yeah, that's really powerful.
Yeah, no, I think that's about as real as it gets.
It is real, man.
And it's a shocking realization because you think you're doing it so people will say, oh, what a good boy. But it's nothing to do with the external. Yeah. It's totally internal. Yeah. You know, if you can win this battle, you can do almost anything.
So what's the next challenge for you? What you know, you've achieved a lot of success. You're in the 1%.
Yeah. 0.1 probably.
Right. You're in the 0.1%. Right.
By the way, when they say there's all these conspiracies that the 0.1% are trying to rule the world, no one's ever called me and said, hey, here's the deal. We're going to screw all the little guys. Yeah. We're going to put them in a prison camp somewhere. Like, no one's ever called me. So if that's going on, it's the 0.0001%. Right. So I'm just saying. Anyway, right.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. What I believe about, conspiracy theorists that think that stuff is, I think what happens is they just fundamentally don't understand how you can achieve that without some sort of like crazy situation going on. That's what I think. I figured it out.
Yeah.
Because me on my level, and I've achieved 7 figures in my business, but
that's amazing.
Right. I haven't. There's so much further I can go. But even on my level, people still have a hard time believing me, and I'm like, I'm not like. Yeah. Just kind of like what you were saying, when you start, even though you start progressing a lot, you start comparing yourself to other people. And I know I'm like, I meet people all the time, and I'm, in terms of, financial and stuff like that, I'm nowhere near on that level. And it's confusing to me how people think that somehow I'm different. I'm like, I'm not.
I totally get it.
So it's like these conspiracy theories that people come up with, I think they do it because they just can't understand what you're doing differently that they're doing, and they think that somebody else and some secret ritual is going on that causes it to happen.
I think you're probably right. There's so much, like I met Richard Branson, and when I was talking to him, by the way, I paid money to meet him, just so I don't want to imply he's my friend, because he's not, but I paid money to go to his island and hang out with him. Necker Island. And he said to me, he goes, people say I'm lucky because I got out of the record business right when the records business went in the toilet because of the streaming. Yeah. And I got into the airline business. And he said, the truth is, I am lucky, but you only succeed in life if you put yourself in a position to be lucky. And the reason I'm telling you this is I didn't know Keller Williams was going to become this amazing company. I just went all out for Keller Williams. Does that make sense? Yeah. The piece we didn't even touch on is I've invested a large amount of money in real estate. I didn't know we were going to have a real estate boom. I just knew that I wanted to own real estate. So I started buying a lot of single family homes all around the country, and they've boomed. They've done really well as well. I didn't know, there's so many things. You just have to put yourself out there. And I think what a lot of people do is they'd rather project on you that you're special or you're different than actually do the work themselves.
It's so funny that you say that because
we're the same. I mean, there's nothing. I'm a dorky, nerdy little kid that wasn't popular in high school, smoked weed, procrastinated. I wasn't unpopular. I was just like in the middle, dude. I was in the middle of everything, Yeah. And the success I've had is more because of working on how I think, and then doing the stuff. Work, action, feedback. Take more action, more feedback, and continuing to learn and try to find new ways of being. Yeah. And that's what's led me kind of into the promised land.
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that because, which is it leads me to another point, which is do stuff that you really believe in. Yeah. Because. When me and Prince was doing our thing, like I really believed in it. I gave 100%, and obviously, he's super successful. I was able to be successful as well, but the point is, I gave 100% into what I was doing, and because of that, like you said, I guess we got lucky.
And when you say that, that's the key. Like, give it 100%. When I was bagging groceries, I tried to be the best grocery bagger. Yeah, and just going in as hard as you can and knowing it's going to be messy and chaotic and you're going to fail and you're going to have bad days and you can have days when you don't want to get off the couch. There's all these days that happen. So people misunderstand doing 100%. They think that means showing up every day and just like being like Rocky. But that's not what it means. It means that you do that as much as you can. And sometimes included in giving it 100% is being lame and lazy and like scared and confused and laying on your couch. Like you go through being authentically that. Yeah. And then when you're ready to roll, be authentically in. Right. But you don't like half mail it in. You don't like pretend to do something, which a lot of people, I think, they just back it up. They don't really like go for it. And that's okay too. Right. But that's, if you want to be where you and I are, you have to be willing to put yourself out there at a high level.
Wow. Oh man, so what, after reaching the levels of success you are, what is considered success now?
Yeah. Here's the most frustrating thing about life. Yeah. I wish you could just like arrive and be done. That would be awesome. Yeah. Like if I could just be like, I figured it all out. I want to stay exactly like this for the rest of the time. But the truth is life never stops. You never stop evolving until you're dying. So unfortunately, it's still a lot of work. Unfortunately, right now I'm working on being a better husband and a better dad. And I'm working, I still got my businesses. I love that. I got a great team. I love my team. I'm very grateful for who I get to work with. But I'm trying to unwrap, Travis, some of the behavioral traits that aren't serving me any further in terms of like being closer to my wife. That's a good one. So we're working on this conscious loving stuff. There's a great book called The 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And we're trying to reveal ourselves to one another, reveal the judgments, reveal the pain, and really be vulnerable. And instead of starting a conversation with like, why did you leave the coffee out? It's I'm angry. You start with your feeling. I'm angry, and the story I'm telling myself is you always leave your coffee cup out. So it's crazy, man. We're doing all this mental work. We're taking classes. It just never ends. I'm in bigger battles now. Sometimes one of the things I try to do is surround the people I'm competing with love. Like I'm really working on my mindset further and further. Just to keep growing as a human being. I'm tweaking my health. I'm tweaking my exercise routine. I'm spending time with my kids even when I don't want to. Like I'm figuring all that stuff out.
So you surpassed 9-figure net worth.
Yeah.
Have you ever had the itch to go to the 10?
You know,
billionaire stats.
Here's my story, and it may or may not be true. I'm scared that if I did what it took to get to 10 figures, I would miss out on the things that are worth more than money. And that's my boy's 4, my daughter's 11. I already blew it with my older daughter who's 32, who I love to death, but I didn't get enough time with her because I was building my career. And I would rather look back in 10 years, Travis, and have a 10 out of 10 relationship with my 2 kids and my wife and be at 9 or even 8 figures or whatever than to be at 10 and have missed on that. So I'm more like fearful because it's so easy for me to fall into that money making game now because I've got so much background in it, so much skill in it. But the piece of that, what is it? It's like competing. It's like playing poker. It's like playing, it's like playing a game. But raising kids is a different kind of game. It's more about coming from the heart. So in answer to your question, the younger me definitely wanted to hit that number, but the older me, I couldn't even care less about it. I've hit a good enough number. I'd like to try to find more ways to contribute. I'd like to change my soul, get more and more in touch with my soul. I'd love to do as much as I could to make the difference to other people. I have more than I need. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I don't
absolutely.
need more, and I need to take care of other people in the best way I can. And the best way I can take care of the immediate world is by helping my kids grow up to be healthy, caring, compassionate, loving kids.
Right.
Yeah, so that's why. There is a little temptation occasionally. It is the bee is the next world. But
that's like, the mythical bee.
It's like mythical, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, what the hell do you do with it all? Like, what
do you do with it all, right?
And most billionaires I met are so uber focused, but they're not balanced. Like, do you think Elon Musk is balanced?
No.
Is Jeff Bezos balanced?
No, I don't think so.
I think I'd rather stay married and have my kids and do that. I've looked at it hard, and I really think that's the right strategy.
So, what do you want your legacy to be? When everything is done, what does the legacy of David Osborn?
We created GoBundance, which is my tribe of millionaires, my tribe of up-and-comers. And if I was at my funeral and there were like a few hundred guys there, maybe 1,000 if I get a little bit out of my comfort zone, and they were like, that guy made a difference in my life. He was like, he left a signpost behind for me to get to the next level. To me, that would be like, that'd be heaven. If my kids were there and they were like, my dad was a great dad. He was present for us. If, we pay for some kids to go through college in Mexico. And if I could just make a little difference in a lot of people's lives, that would be my legacy. I'd live with that.
Oh, man. Amen. Any final words?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much going on in the world today, and there's so much, challenge and noise outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
And I mean, my prayer for us all would be that people just kind of take ownership of what their little space. And
how do you quiet the mind?
Yeah, and just win and help people win.
Yeah.
And be abundant together. That would be my wish for everybody.
Yeah. David, this is powerful.
Thanks, man.
This is going to ring a lot of bells. I like that. This is, I think the biggest thing for me that I took away from this interview is I genuinely feel like that not only do I feel empowered, but just hearing your story, I don't care where I'm from or who I am, I would feel like I can make it.
Yeah.
I would feel like I can do it. I feel like you gave the tools and the gems necessary for anybody to succeed.
Thanks.
And I think that truth stands the test of time.
Yeah.
That's going to live on for generations.
Can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
There are so many people that want to help you too. Like there are so many people that have helped me, and there are so many people out there that want to help your listeners. You just have to be the right person that they want to help.
True. Yeah.
And so that's what we're doing here. You've helped me.
Yeah.
It's just like people say rich people are greedy and possessive, and that might be true of some of them. My experience is there are so many people that have helped me along the way.
Yeah.
And they wanted to help me because I was the kind of guy that was trying earnestly.
Right.
And so they leaned into me because of that.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is amazing, and it's such a great world today for information. It's all just right there because of your podcast and things people like you do. So thanks.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, great to see you.
It's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you, Travis.
David Osborn, the amazing, in my opinion, the best real estate person I know, period. But definitely the best in Austin. And where can people find?
You know, my I am David Osborn is my Instagram. They can also pick up Tribe of Millionaires
or Wealth.
What if they want to join one of the
GoBundance? Just go to GoBundance.com.
GoBundance.com.
Yeah, we've got 2 programs there, one for established folks and one for up-and-comers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Emerge.
cool.
We just rolled out the Emerge program.
And they can go to GoBundance.com for that too?
Yes, they can.
Awesome. All right, so you heard it here first. And yeah, I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.